So, I'd like to talk about some things. There's been some recent events that have transpired that were like a metaphorical snowball going down a mountain and causing an avalanche. I know I'm referring to my main story and everything that happened in my story, but this is another avalanche type of scenario. And I just want to share it because I think it's very important that if you're in a healing process of your life or you escaped some sort of violence, whether that be trafficking, abuse, DV, any of that, I think it's critical that you have the right people in your corner because if your gut starts reading that things are not right and you're starting to see red flags and the red flags become completely out of your control, that's not right because people in your corner should be your best friend and your number one supporter. They shouldn't be metaphorically, going up the wrong, like going trying to paddle up a downstream. They should be guiding you down the stream and they should be supporting you along the way. But I need to, instead of making a giant video, I'm going to chop it up into different videos to explain different events. But I would like to start with the first one, and I feel like this is where a lot of friends have pretty much said, like, this is where the breaking point would have been. Like, I would not have been friends after this incident. And looking back, it's like, yeah, I should have just cut ties here because it was completely, wildly inappropriate and very disrespectful. So I brought someone and it was ironic because he would call me, a little sibling, little sister, and we're not related. We only knew each other for 3 years, and at first it seemed benign because it was like, oh, you're considering me family, and then it eventually turned into controlling and manipulation and narcissistic control and abuse. And it was kind of like, oh, well, you're my little sister, so you have to do this, or just trying to convince me and manipulate me to do things that I didn't quite feel comfortable doing. And it was so like subtle at first, and then towards the end it was like, yeah, this is not cool at all. But the first incident, I went out of state and this person was my support system because, like I said, it was like, oh, I'm your big brother, you're my little sister, let's, I'm your biggest supporter, I want to be there, I want to be there, I want to, see you succeed. It was just all like the usual love bombing type of rhetoric. So I was like, fine, let's go. And so we go out of state, and I end up at a domestic violence shelter, and that's where I had to be to meet up with these two individuals, my advocate and a detective. At the conclusion of the interview, the detective said, I appreciate your time, but I can't help you further. You need to go here. Like, he referred me somewhere else, and it was like probably a 40-minute drive. I was the one driving. I didn't mind. I was just like, oh, that's a bummer, but thank you so much. And because of, my gratitude, he was like, well, all the information that you had saved, I will present that to them as well. So, like, today was not a waste. And I was okay with that, but the person that I brought, ended up ripping their hair out. And the detective left the room, but the advocate and I were just kind of like, this is awkward. Like, we're in a domestic violence shelter and there's a male getting violent. It was really uncomfortable. I did not know what was going to happen next. I did not know if he was going to snap. And it was really weird because this had nothing to do with him. And then it was weird how his explanation matched a literal trauma and like information about a trauma that I shared, that I used to get panic attacks because I had abusers and traffickers try to locate my location and be like, when are you coming home? What are you doing? How are you doing this? Like on me 24/7. So it was really weird to hear the almost verbatim what I've confided in him months, maybe even years prior, and have said multiple times. So we get to the car and he starts punching himself in the head at least 5 or 6 times. And I'm very uncomfortable. I'm like, I need to get out of this situation because we're in the parking lot of a domestic violence shelter and you don't know who is already really upset and triggered because of a violent man. And I have a guy who's punching himself in the head, and then he was like, I shouldn't, like, he started mumbling stuff under his breath, and it was just really uncomfortable, and I never really got a thorough explanation. We never got to talk about things, and that's the lesson, that's the moral of the story that you're going to start seeing, is there was never any accountability or conversation to try to understand these situations or instances. It was just like, oh, it's brushed under the rug, like eventually he was like, I'm sorry, I'm taken away from your day, and it's just like, well, but I gotta drive, I don't know what you want me to do, I don't know what you want me to say, like, I'm not here to coddle you. I'm here to report things that need to be reported, and you're my support system. Like, if I have to do this alone, I have to do this alone. Like, I regretted bringing this person because I didn't know that this was going to happen. I felt like in the long run, it should have just been myself. Like, I could have just taken myself and met up with that advocate, maybe even met up with her, for lunch, and then we both go together. But that was just very inappropriate and just made my gut scream something is wrong. But that's the first story, and I would like to share the other stories, but I can't fit it all in one video. But that was story number one, and when I shared that to family and friends, people were like, that's not appropriate. Like, that's where I would have completely severed ties. And whether or not it was like an emotional episode or a panic attack, there's, I don't want to say there's a time and place, but it, as the stories progress, because at first I thought, like I said, it was benign, like he genuinely had like a episode or a PTSD flashback, but then as things progress, it starts to show that this is all control and manipulation. And this is just story one, and this is where my gut started to snap and be like, something's not right. Like, keep an eye on the situation. Something is not right. But that's my first story, and I will continue to share more stories with each video.